Hi there, and welcome to today's episode, which might sound that will be heavy and depressing and scary. We will be talking about grief, loss, trauma, but it is actually a very positive and encouraging and lighthearted episode. So today we talk with Chris Mamone, who is an acceptance coach, and he helps people to heal from grief, loss, and trauma. He helps them to discover their self acceptance and step into their personal power. So, today we talk a lot about healing pain, processing grief, processing life losses and traumas, but we look at it from a very kind, loving, supportive, and joyful and positive and encouraging perspective. Chris is a fantastic speaker, he's a fantastic person, full of life and gratitude and curiosity. And I'm sure that you will absolutely love this episode. So let's step into this brave and beautiful space together.
Before we start our conversation, this is where we ask, can you please subscribe, like, or share our episodes? The more you subscribe, the more reach we have, and we can share these beautiful episodes that we have from guests like Chris. And I do appreciate that you don't always like to press that subscribe button. But this is something that we know you like to listen, and you are listening to our episodes and you're watching them. Please do just hit that subscribe, because it is something that does sometimes feel uncomfortable, but just do it. Please just do it. I'm saying that nicely, but it does help with reach, and this is something that we really want to do, is reach a further audience, especially when we have such a powerful conversation like we had today. So hit subscribe, like, and share, so that you can share this with all those that need to listen to this, and hit that notification button so that you get reminders of when new episodes go up. But now let's get on to this beautiful conversation that we had with Chris.
So, hi, Chris, how are you? Welcome to the show.
Hi, Lenka. Thanks for having me on your podcast today. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Me too. So, to get us started, please could you tell us and our listeners a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do, what gets you up in the morning? I know that over on your end, it is bright and early in the morning. So, aside from, recording a podcast with us, what it is that in the morning gets you fired up, excited for the day ahead?
So I'll share with you guys, listeners. My name is Chris Mamone, and I'm an acceptance coach. And what I do is I help people heal from grief, loss, and trauma to discover their self-acceptance and step into their personal power. And I will share with you guys, if you asked me 5 years ago if I would be here today, the answer I'd tell you is probably no. A little bit short story about myself is back in 2020, I was with my grandfather in his last minutes of life. That was a very traumatic thing to go through. It was my first real experience with that. 2 years after that, I lost my child to stillbirth, and that was a really hard, tragic situation, but it was also one of the biggest gifts I got in my life. I know that's going to sound weird to listeners and for even you guys to hear, but my son is actually what drives me right now in my business, and it's why I created my company, the accepted, or sorry, stumbling over my words this morning. My empowered grief journey coaching practice is what I started in honor of my son, because I sat with depression after that happened, and I had to find meaning and purpose through that moment because it was a very sad and very tragic situation that happened. And I always talk about him a lot. My son's name is Caden. He's a beautiful little boy. But he gave me such a big gift in life because things weren't working right. And so I had to do something with this. So it was a big opportunity to see the gifts, the lessons, and the blessings of that moment of life. And I ended up creating a coaching practice out of it. So what gets me fired up in the morning is that I get to talk to beautiful people like you guys across the world. I talk to people from Australia, the Netherlands, the UK, Canada, Vietnam. I talk to people all over the place. And grief is a very universal thing that we all experience and we all go through. But we do it individually. And here in the States, grief is something that oftentimes is very misunderstood. It's not a practice that is widely accepted or people are given space to go through. And so I've been that guy that shows people how to do that. And so I get excited to talk to people every day because I've watched people go through really tragic moments like I have in life, but they do very beautiful things out of it and change the world through their grief. And so I get very honored and blessed to get up every day and just talk to people like that. It makes me smile. I get to honor my son every day with what I do, so it makes me really happy inside, and that's what drives me.
W- Wow, what a start to our conversation. And I love that you're bringing such a positive energy into a topic that could be quite heavy and draining and scary. I don't think it's only in the US where grief is something that's not necessarily fully talked about, fully embraced, something that would be encouraged, that people would be willy-nilly talking about, that you would be feeling at ease and vulnerable with your friends and family and coworkers at easily to talk about it. So I would love to start by opening up a little bit more about, could we talk about what is actually grief? Like we all know that, when we have a loss, we feel sad, we feel emotions, we might go through certain stages, but what it is grief from your perspective, from your experience, from working with people, processing grief, and why is it that it's still in so many cases big taboo, a big topic that is being not talked about, and why do we actually need to talk more about grief for, I presume, making it less negatively impactful the more we talk about it?
So grief, in my perspective, is a very misunderstood process. And the reason I say that is that we all have societal social conditioning to not talk about it, to not discuss it. Oh, it's this big negative thing. Oh, you got to move on in life. You got to let go of that. It happened. Get over it. Life goes on. The crazy part about grief is that that's a matter of the heart. It's not a matter of the mind. Our conscious mind can rationalize things. It can process things. It can try to talk us out of stuff. But when it comes to matters of the heart will overpower the mind every single time. And I see it with everybody who goes through grief. I don't care if you're the guy that just doesn't want to feel emotions and you're Mr. Tough Guy, or you're a woman that puts on a front and says, well, I can't be overly emotional right now. I don't care who you are. Grief is a matter of the heart. And when we try to rationalize it with our brain, we're fighting internally. And that's why a lot of people go through a very big array of emotions. I've seen everybody go from angry to sad to frustrated to upset to depression to happiness and grief. I've seen the array of emotions that come with it. And grief is not a linear process, believe it or not. It's actually a big wave, is what I tell people. There's days that you're going to feel fine. You can go on with life. It's okay. But there's going to be days it feels like somebody just smacked you across the face with a bat, and you're just going, I don't even know where that came from. I don't even know why that happened. I don't know why I feel off today. And so grief is going to be all over the place. It's a big, messy process, is what I tell people. And my biggest phrase that I share with people that I coach who are in a bad place right now in their griefs, I say, it's okay to not be okay. I'm the one that's going to tell you that. Most people around you won't, but I will tell you it's okay to not be okay. Because I want to give people that space to say, I feel the way I do today. I give myself permission to be here right now. I honor my grief journey by just accepting where I'm at today. It doesn't mean I like it, doesn't mean I enjoy it. But what it means is I've just accepted this for what it is. And now I get the ability to take my power back, take my control back, and say, well, how do I want to deal with this? How do I want to process this? What does grief mean to me? And what does moving forward look like? I've always told people I don't like the phrase get over it, let it go, move on. I don't like that stuff. It doesn't work for anybody. Anybody who does do that, it's a lie you're telling yourself. You're actually dishonoring your grief journey by saying those things. So what you want to do is say, how can I move forward with my grief? How can I make purpose and meaning out of this thing in life? Because even in the worst moments of grief, there's a big gift and a lesson for you, big one. And when you find that, by the way, that horrible thing that happened to you, it's not the horrible thing. It's the thing that leveled you up into the next part of life.
I love how you've described grief. It's as you said, it is so personal, and it's everybody has a different way of dealing with it because, as you said, it's of the heart. And one thing that we seem to have done in the last, I can't remember how many years, it was probably about 100 years, is denied denied that grief happens. Whereas in the olden days, especially if there's a death. It's, you used to wear black, and widows would wear black for a year to show that they are in a process of grieving. Men would have the black armbands to show, you know, I am in this place, and it was accepted to show the world that I have had a loss and I'm here, and I'm, you know, still here. But it whereas now it's not something that you talk about or you share, because as you said, I will get over it. You know, oh well, it happened a week ago. What's your problem? You know, it's or people just don't understand, and you'll say something is, you know, I've experienced a death, or a friend of mine's died, or I've lost a child, and it's like, well, yeah, you know, I've got to go sort something out, or well, it's actually a nice sunny day today, so you should be all right. You know, it's like this total change of subject, or this blank look, or this, you can feel people trying to backpedal away from you, because it's like you almost become this contagion that, oh my God, I can't be anywhere near this person because I might catch whatever they've got. But all you're doing is you feeling sad, you feeling grief. And I know that grief is also comes in so many different ways. We have grief from a death of a loved one, a child. You can have a grief of losing a job. You can have grief of pets, you know, your pets dying. And I know that Lenka and I have gone through that recently, and that's something that you don't talk about. How can you be sad over your dog dying? Or you can have grief is a loss of anything. It's not just death. It's not just losing a parent or a loved one or a child. It can be something as almost mundane as losing your job, or losing your house, or being robbed, or something. There's a loss that's happened. And I think this is where talking about grief is so important, because we see the big grief, the ones that we can see, and I'm using inverted commas there, because when it's family or friends, it's like, oh yeah, I get that. But I don't understand why you're grieving for a job, or why you're grieving for a loss of a child you didn't have. Or, you know, it's trying to help people to understand maybe the place that you're in right now. And as you said, it doesn't go away. We just learn to live with it. We just learn to find ways to have it in our life. But it's not that you're in that absolute grip of it. You know, when it just first happens, you have that, like, I don't know, the heartbreaking or that shock. But over time, you're still living with it. It doesn't go away. It's not anything that just goes away. And some people deal with it differently, or maybe better than others, but it all varies on the relationships that you've had prior to that. So I love that we're talking about this topic. I know it's a really, can be a really grim topic, but I think it's an important topic, because it happens to everybody. You can't avoid it. It happens to everybody. Within a lifetime, it can happen a lot of times. So thank you for sharing that, and thank you for sharing about what got you on your journey. Because as you say, these journeys don't just start, you know, when you're a kid on a whim. It's normally something that triggers a person to go in the direction that they're going in. And losing a son at stillbirth, I mean, that's a hell of a thing to go through, and to share it with others, and to embrace that into something that you are helping others. As you said, it was a gift, which I know it sounds really weird, doesn't it? It's like,
It does.
this is a gift. But like you said, it's what do we get from the experience? What do we learn from it? And how can we grow with it? So with all that rambling, is what do you, let me try get my words into, I'll put my teeth back in, as they say here in the UK. We'll put our teeth back in. It's how do you help people? And I know you say that it's okay to not be okay, but how do you help people to really understand or know what it is they're going through? Because we suppress our emotions. So we might not have an understanding of what we're dealing with. It's, as you said, the mind is going, yeah, but you've lost somebody. But the mind is also going, well, deal with it. Just let's go. And then you just keep going. So how do you actually get somebody to like sit down and really understand or find a way to deal with what they're going through? I hope that question made sense.
Natalie, it made perfect sense. You said a lot of good things, by the way, so I want to catch up to that and how I help people at the end here. Really, with grief, it's a personal transformation journey, is what I tell people. What you were used to over here does not exist over here after grief. My life after I lost my grandfather, not the same. Now, my life after I lost my kid, not the same. The reason people have a hard time with grief is we're so used to what we've normalized in our day and our routine in our life. And when we go through grief, it's a massive shift. It's like our life gets flipped upside down, and all of a sudden, who we were is not who we are anymore. We're stepping into this new version of ourselves. And so it's very uncomfortable because we're having to meet our new version of ourselves. We're having to say, oh, who's this new version of Natalie or Lenka? Who's this new version of ourselves? How do we think? How do we feel now? Do we like the same people we have in our life, or there are people that just are not working out for us and we got to let that go? If we're in a place of a job, for example, if we don't like that job anymore, we've got to let it go. Or if we get fired from that job, we've got to move forward from that, because that job, it served us, it served its purpose, it served its time, but it's something that's passed on and we're ready for that next thing. We get uncomfortable with this personal transformation journey because, like I said, it's very uncertain. It's very new. It's causing us to step into somebody else that we're not quite yet. But when we do make that shift, that's where we meet our true self. That's where we align with ourselves and we really become bigger than who we are. So that's number one. Number two, the other point you brought up, Natalie, is that as we go through grief, a lot of people don't understand our journey or don't want to. I've learned a very powerful lesson through my own journeys, is that people can only empathize with you to the level of experience they have in life. And using the loss of my stillborn, by the way, I had lots of people that made very uncomfortable for them. They didn't know how to respond. They didn't know how to react to it. They'd brush it off. They'd just say, well, it happened. Like, it just, I don't know what to tell you. It just is what it is. They're not going to understand. So when you do go find people that have experienced a loss like you, somebody who's lost a parent, somebody who's lost a grandparent, somebody who's lost a kid, somebody who's lost a job, maybe somebody who's gotten fired from a job, go find those people that resonate with your loss, because they will understand you. They will get you. And the reason I say that is when you're in a grief process, if you surround yourself with people that don't understand you, you will amplify that trauma and you'll amplify the problem going on. You won't feel seen and heard and understood, as I like to say. So find people that make you feel that way. Find people that say, hey, it's okay to not be okay. I understand you. I hear you. I see you. I understand you. When you find people that can give you that grief process gets a lot easier for you. And it gives you support, it gives you validation, but it gives you a way to move forward. How I help people with that, by the way, is exactly what I just said. I make people feel seen and heard and understood, because at a core level of who we are as humans, and I don't care where you live in the world, what you identify as, your thought patterns, your beliefs, I don't care about any of that, honestly, because as a human being, as a person, doesn't matter who you are, when when you feel seen, when you feel heard, you feel understood, there's this thing in your body where your shoulders go down, your face muscles relax, your heart stops beating so quickly, because you feel seen and you feel valued. You feel, as a person, as a human being, you're there and you're present. And when somebody gets to that place, by the way, being vulnerable is not a problem because vulnerability is who we are. This tough exterior we put on, the labels we identify ourselves with, just are really not helpful to society. They're not helpful to you. There's a lot of people that say, oh, you're an acceptance coach. It's a label I use to call myself in coaching, but it's not who I am. It's not what I do. I'm really just somebody that listens to somebody and holds space for people that are grieving. And I give them space to just be exactly who they are in that moment or who they want to be. I don't have conditions or rules on how people need to be. I don't. I accept people for who they are. And when you give people that space, by the way, beautiful, beautiful things happen. And I've watched people that have gone through current losses, like a family member committing suicide, just be open with themselves. And in that place of vulnerability, and I'll wrap up with this, you get real honest with your emotions. And it doesn't come out in, I'm angry, I'm upset, I'm this, I'm that. It doesn't come out that way. It comes out in the terms of, I feel this way and I just don't understand this. I feel this way and I don't know what to do with this. And that gives you a beautiful place in your grief journey to begin the healing process.
I think Lenka and I are trying to work out who's going next. For somebody who's knows somebody who's had a loss, and not for the person who's had a loss, but our listeners might know somebody who's recently lost a parent or lost a friend or whatever they've lost, and wants to be there but doesn't really necessarily know how to be there. And of course they don't want to be that person that's trying to backpedal and go away, but because they don't know what to say or what to do, what would be your advice for somebody who wants to be there but doesn't know how to be there?
That is a great question, Natalie. You're the first person that's asked me that on the podcast. So I love that. What I would share is if you are in a situation where you need to support somebody with grief, my biggest thing I can share with you is your presence alone is so powerful to somebody. I'm going to tell you that right now. You don't even have to say much. That's the funny part that a lot of people don't know. We fill that awkward silence that a lot of us feel in those moments. We fill that with rambling or talking all the time because we're just not certain how to deal with it. It doesn't mean you're a bad person, by the way. I want to make that really clear. We fill that void and that silence because we're just not sure how to handle this situation. We don't know what to expect. We may not have lost a parent or lost a child, so we're going, I don't know how to help this person, but I got this thing that I really want to help them. And so what I always share is the best thing you can do is you can say really simple statements to them. Keep it really simple and just say, I'm very sorry this happened to you, or I'm very sorry for your loss. Um, Saying, I can't imagine what you're going through right now, but if you would like to talk, I'd like to be there for you. And the best question I use all the time that sounds a lot better is asking somebody, how can I support you today? And just leave it at that. Turn that power over to the griever to tell you what they need at that moment. I had a very powerful moment 2 months ago. I met a guy in the UK who was suicidal in a very bad place on Facebook. And he and I have been messaging ever since we connected. But I asked him one day when he was having a really bad day. He and I were in the DMs for probably 2 hours that day. And I just said to him, I'll just use a fake name, so I don't want to call his name out, but I just said, John, um, what's going on right now? And he said, I'm having really bad thoughts. And I said, why don't you share those with me? I said, share those thoughts with me. I don't even know. You're across the pond, mate. I mean, we can just do this whatever way we need to. He dumped all his thoughts in the DM. And I told him, I said, how did that make you feel to get that all out? And he said, Chris, you're a top bloke. I can't thank you enough for giving me space to just get this thought out right now. And I asked him from there, I said, how best can I support you today on top of what we've already done? What can I do to support you? And he said, you've given me the biggest amount of support I needed because I just needed to feel heard. I just needed to get these thoughts out. I needed somebody that would listen and not tell me I'm crazy or not tell me I don't have a problem. I just needed somebody to hear me. And so I use this example to say that if you are somebody around a griever, that awkward, shifty thing that goes on with people that you're not sure how to deal with the situation, that's an uncomfortable place for you because you're going to deal with something you're not familiar with. But the best thing you can really do is just say, how can I best support you today? And see those comments, acknowledge them too. That's a big one. I think what I stumbled around with is acknowledge them. Just say, I'm very sorry that happened to you, or I'm really sorry to hear you're going through that right now. What can I do to support you? That's the best thing you can do. I'll tell you right now, by the way, that person might not want to talk sometimes, and that's okay. Just sit with them in silence. Presence a huge thing. If they want to talk about other topics, by the way, like the weather or whatever it may be, just let them do it. Sit there and listen. When they make those people, back to what I said earlier, when you make somebody feel seen, heard, and understood, doesn't always mean you have to talk or change the subject or shift things around, but just listening to them, it's so powerful for that person because they're in a very vulnerable state. They themselves, by the way, grievers, we're also not sure what we want to say sometimes because we're thinking the same thing you are about, well, if I say this, they're going to make them really uncomfortable. When I lost my son, I was like, yesterday when I went to the dentist, the lady said, "Do you have kids?" And I got really nervous and was like, when I tell people I have a stillborn, they get like, "Whoa, that's a lot. I don't know. I'm not sure I can handle this kind of thing." But I got met with the opposite thing when I said, I lost my son a couple years ago and he's a beautiful boy. And she said, "I'm so sorry you went through that loss. I can't imagine what it was like to have a stillborn." She said, I can't even get pregnant. My body won't let me do it. So I've been struggling with that myself, majority of my life. And then she asked me, what was your son's name? And a lot of people don't ask me that, but she has no idea, by the way. This total stranger I met yesterday has no idea how powerful it was when she said, "What was your son's name?" That question lights me up like a little kid. So I shared that example today to tell you guys when you are dealing with somebody that's in a grieving situation, ask some questions like that. You have no idea how the simplest question can touch their heart in such a big way.
Well, I think that what you were talking about, there is this dynamic that I'm noticing is, sometimes we see grief as like a thing, a permanent status, as something that is. And I love that you're explaining it more as a process, that, it is a journey. It's not something that is here and it will sit on top of you exactly as it is forever and ever and be the same. It is an evolution, but also within the dynamic as you were talking with other people about that, there is the requirement for the stillness. And I think that sometimes the most difficult thing for others dealing with someone who is going through a difficult period is allowing the stillness, the quietness, holding the space, not jumping into solutions and problem solving and trying to help and trying to heal and trying to fix. I think it's so important. I love the balance of, ultimately long-term grief is a process. It's something it's a journey, it's an evolution, but also it is a state of existence in a moment that we need to. As I think for the powerful word you used there was the acceptance. I think accepting, acknowledging of it is what it is, and if all I can do is to sit with you, and what I'm going to do, um, and if there's more I can help, I will do. But creating the space, I think it's so important. But I love also that, we're here to talk about it openly and publicly and allow people to see that you didn't have to necessarily go through a major, situation to really be grieving. That I would love to talk maybe about the less impactful, like, grieving, we talked about it, be it a loss of a job, be it a loss of an opportunity, be it something that is not necessarily the big T trauma, something that is heavy and completely life-changing in a very dramatic way. Losing a job could be quite big, but the losses that we often don't acknowledge the fact that we might be grieving, not acknowledge that this is something that we also need to process and that could impact us. That we're like brushing over, be it with ourselves or with others, to be like, come on, it's just a little thing. You lost this opportunity, you lost this, be it a friend, again, to disconnection, not necessarily anything, again, serious happening, just lost touch, but there's still grief involved. Like, do you also see this happening with your clients where it's not coming because of the major life-changing event, but there is just underlying feelings of grief or just the smaller, more common life events?
Lenka, I'm really glad that you asked that question because that's something I've wanted to talk about in the grief space for a long time. I will share with my audience or your audience, I do this on my podcast too. I've gone through a lot of job loss, to be very honest. I've been fired from a lot of jobs. I have changed companies multiple times when I had my 8-year mortgage career. Those losses in the moment were very, very hard. I can only share this with you guys where I'm at today. Um, when we lose a job, by the way, a job gives us purpose. A job gives us routine. A job gives us connections. When we lose that job, we lose all of that. And usually, when we lose a job, by the way, it is sudden, it is fast, it is quick. Sometimes there's not a lot of explanation behind it. Sometimes it can feel like a personal attack from people ganging up on you and just trying to push you and bully you around. That can happen a lot too. So when we lose that, by the way, just a job, we're not talking about death of somebody, but talking about job, for example, that's a radical life shift because now all of a sudden there's financial instability. I might have to move. I might have to figure something out. I might have to work multiple part-time jobs. I might have to borrow money from someone. There's so many things that I just described that are very, very heavy on somebody. There's a lot to process with that. And it's a very major life-changing event. And again, like I said earlier in the podcast, it applies in the heavier side of grief as well as this side of grief. It's a personal transformation because who you were before that job loss is not who you are afterwards. Um, I can speak from my personal experience of losing a job that meant a lot to me. I had a situation where I got bullied at work by a whole team of people. It was a personal attack, and it was very hard to deal with when I got let go from my job because I saw my own manager defend bullying's cultural environment. Um, I didn't understand it because I care a lot about people. I care about doing the right things. I care about working with people. And that was very hard for me to come to terms with, but something that I can share today that I looked back on, I outgrew that. That's really what happened. That's why that event happened. And so when it comes to jobs, for example, jobs are not meant to be there your whole life, believe it or not. And if you do stay in a job 30, 40, even 50 years, I've heard from some people, you might have missed out on some opportunities that were meant for you, that you were supposed to experience in your life. And a lot of people think that losing a job or changing a job, for example, is somehow bad or wrong, or you didn't do something right, there's something wrong with you. That's the furthest thing from what that actually is. What I like to tell people about our life, by the way, we have zero control over what's going to happen in the next hour. None of us know what's going to happen. I mean, you could end up, you could be in an office building and somebody lights a fire in the kitchen and you guys are out on the street watching the firefighters put the fire out. You could be like in Malaysia last week when they had a earthquake 7.0 thing that shook the buildings. That could happen. So, on top of that, you could lose your job on Friday and get a new one on Monday. You can. It's possible. So we don't control things is where I'm going with this. We don't control our path. But what we can do, by the way, is only focus on what we can control, which is ourself. And that means that we always have to be looking at what are the gifts, what are the lessons, and what are the blessings of our life. When we look at a job loss, for example, I've talked to people, and I have a client right now, by the way, who isn't working at her job, and she's upset about not having it. And I said, "Well, you don't like this job. You've never been happy with this job." I said, "If you let go or fired, it's a blessing. It's not a bad thing." I said, "That thing that weighs you down all the time, that you're constantly thinking about, constantly grieving over, constantly upset about not being accepted at that job, it's gone. It's done." I said, so it was a release for you. It was freedom being given to you. It was a gift. And I call it in the terms of grief world, I call it a gift in shitty wrapping paper. We didn't want this gift, we didn't like it, and we did not see like how it was given to us. But it gave us this opportunity is the big thing. And that's where I tell people that in that grief space, this opportunity that comes your way and you lose that job, the next thing that comes is aligned for you. That next thing that comes is better than that. And you're going to take what you can from your experiences. So the last point I'll wrap up with, but you're going to take everything you can from your experiences in life. And when those doors close, by the way, they're not meant to be reopened because you took everything you could from that experience. Now it's time to go forward and do something even better and more meaningful. And it doesn't matter, by the way, if you're a janitor, a CEO of a company, I don't care what your level of life is. Your experiences, they all matter. They all build you into the person you're becoming. And so, my phrase I use in coaching too is that you're not broken, you're becoming. And when you're becoming, you're a powerful person.
You touched on also something that has been appearing quite regularly in my life with clients and colleagues and people around, where not everyone is really the nicest human being in the world. Like we talked about, if you want to be a good person, if you want to be a good friend, how can we help in a positive way? But what if we're in a situation that there is some sort of a loss, some sort of a grief, but we're surrounded more by the people who don't accept, don't acknowledge, who don't create a space, who may be the bullies, who may be people of narcissistic tendencies, who make it all about themselves and who might be gaslighting us into, seeing world from their perspective, who don't create a space for us to heal and be vulnerable, and where we have to be in the situation, we have to navigate a situation. It could be, there could be lots of circumstances in relationship, in work situations, where we are surrounded by people who are not really helping the grieving process and who may be causing a lot of the grief. And there is not necessarily, we don't have the control fully to quit the job and leave and to get divorced and leave and to say, be the family or someone. Is there something that we could do again to work with ourselves, especially if people could be more on the sensitive end, especially for someone who is like a empath, highly sensitive person, or someone who has a tendency of people pleasing and they find it really hard and to navigate and deal with people of this nature, especially if then there is a grief involved in the situation? What advice would you have for them?
Lenka, I appreciate that question a lot because that's something I work with my clients on every day. And what I will share with the audience today is a little bit of stoicism for you guys. Marcus Aurelius was a big factor in my own coaching experience. And something I learned through stoicism is when we focus on what we can control within and we don't focus out here, our whole life changes in a second. It's quick, believe it or not. And you can, by the way, you can be dealing with narcissism. I've dealt with that a lot in my life for whatever reason. I'm a very intuitive, I'm a highly sensitive kind of person, and I for some reason attract those people in my life. And I've learned a powerful phrase that I want listeners to really hear today. You don't have to. Stop saying that phrase to yourself. The only thing you have to do every day, by the way, and you guys are going to get a nice little laugh out of this, you have to eat, sleep, and go to the bathroom. Those are your three have tos for the day. Everything else is optional. Please make sure you understand that one. You do not have to go to work. You do not have to go live wherever you live. You don't have to take the bus to work. You don't have to drive to work. You don't have to be around that person who's a narcissist. You don't have to be around them. I don't care if they're your family member or coworker. You do not have to. So stop saying that to yourself. You are lying to yourself. And you're dismissing who you are, by the way. I get a little passionate about this because I see very hurt people a lot. And I sit there and say, we're going to make this micrometer shift very, very small. And I'm going to give you that power back. I want your power inside you because I want to hear Lenka or Natalie say, this is what I want, not what other people want, what I want. And so when you're dealing with, narcissism, for example, as a griever, you're trying to manage your own emotions. Stop trying to manage everybody else's. You're in a very vulnerable, very emotional place, and it is very, very hard, by the way, to take on other people's stuff when you're going through grief. It is very, very hard. And the reason I say that is because you are dealing with a lot, believe it or not. You might not feel it, by the way, but you are dealing with a lot. You've got a lot of emotions going on. You've got a personal transformation journey going on. You're letting go of things that are not serving you, and you're stepping into what's becoming, and you're stepping into alignment of yourself. And so what I like to share about that is if you are a griever and you're around people that are very narcissistic or people that make it all about themselves or people that tell you to let it go and get over it and move on. And what they're really trying to say is that I need you to manage my emotions for me because I'm uncomfortable with this situation. And as a griever, you're trying to navigate your own emotions. I mean, to have to manage 10 other people's emotions on top of yours, and you're grieving and you just went through a loss and you're trying to process all that, that's really unfair. And I'm a very big advocate for grievers, which is why you're seeing the passion come out of me. That is a very unfair situation for you. And I can tell you right now, as somebody that's gone through a lot of trauma in life, that amplifies trauma. And when we amplify trauma, by the way, we go into a problem state, we go into a defense state, and we actually forget about taking care of ourselves because we're too busy trying to manage other people's things that are not our own. So, what I would encourage a person who is highly sensitive like me or highly empathetic and intuitive, and if you're in grief right now and you have, people pleasing tendencies, for example, I want you to take your power back. Hear me right now. I want you to take your power back. You. Doesn't matter about the rest of us around you. It matters about you. I want you to tell yourself, do I really have to do this? The answer is probably no, 99% of the time. If there are people around you that are making you feel that way, not making you feel seen and heard and understood, or making things about them, trying to have you manage their emotions because they're uncomfortable with your grief, they're not a safe person to be around. Please recognize that. I know it's really hard to hear, but they're not a safe person. And the more that you tolerate and allow that behavior in your grief process, the longer it's going to take you to heal. And so I empower people all the time to take their power back, step into yourself. That's why I'm called an acceptance coach. I accept those people for who they are. It doesn't mean I like it, but I accept them for who they are. But I take my power back and say, do I have to have this person in my life? Probably not. Do I have to manage their emotions for them? Absolutely not. I'm responsible for me. I'm responsible for my healing process and my grief journey. I'm not responsible for other people, and that's okay. Give yourself permission. That's okay. When you get to that place, by the way, I will tell you a lot of your stress, a lot of your racing thoughts you have, or a lot of your concern for other people will go away. Your grief journey will get so much easier. And when you do find safe people, by the way, they will actually foster those good beliefs in you that I just talked about. And your grief journey will not be a source of pain, but it'll be transformed into power for you. And you'll be able to move forward with your grief in a very powerful way.
Very powerful advice. And the thing is, it's valid for everybody. It's valid for even if you're not going through a grief process, because we are only responsible for ourselves. We're not responsible for others' emotions and baggage and everything else. So that advice is great for everybody. Let's not take on everybody else's problems and just deal with ourselves and taking our power back. I like that. Take your power back. And that is brilliant advice. And like you said, especially if you are in a place of grieving, but it's valid advice for everyone. Is how many times do we take on other people's stuff because we want to please them, or because they're a boss, or because they're a family member, or whatever, and just finding that those three I have tos. Yes. So simple, isn't it? So thank you for that. That is really great advice. That is really useful to remind our listeners, not just if you're in a place of grieving, but also if you're wanting to be that better person or grow as a person or go on to some transformation, we do need to just, you know what, your stuff is your stuff. I'll deal with my stuff because I'm trying to work out what my stuff is, and I need the space to help me, and you got to help yourself, because we are, as you said, we are responsible for ourselves. As much as we'd like other people to fix us or to do everything for us or just deal with all the stuff, it's not up to other people to do it for us. And it's the same, it's not up to us to do their stuff. So thank you. That was really powerful. And it is about just finding that way of having the boundaries, and just being able to acknowledge to yourself and to slowly put those people in places where they belong and not overwhelming you and sucking you dry. The vampires that we have in life, they just suck you dry. And we all have them. I'm sure we've all got a picture of these vampires in our life. And, you know, unfortunately we do, but we need to have those boundaries in place, because you can't always just totally get rid of them. Sometimes they are in our life, but we've got to find that way that they're not sucking our blood, our life forces and our blood out of us, but we can still have them in our life. But they just need to have that boundary that we can create. Or as I'm speaking, I'm a real Trekkie fan. I love Star Trek, you see, and I'm just picturing, you know, the shields up. You know, you can bomb as much as you like, but I got my shields up, you know, just stay away. So sorry about that tangent. That's what came to my mind as I was speaking, is these shields, is we can put shields around us and not take on other people's stuff, and just really find a way that we can deal with the grief that we're going through, or the stuff that we're going through. And one of the things I wanted to ask you, because this is something that's impacted pretty much everybody in the world, is we went through a huge grieving process in 2020. I mean, the huge loss of freedom, basically, you know, with the lockdowns and everything. And this is something that not a lot of people haven't realized or dealt with or acknowledged, is that was a massive grieving process, because from one day to the next you had freedom and then you didn't have freedom. It's you will stay in your house. I mean, people lost livelihood, people lost their businesses, people lost, you know, so much. And I'm not talking about the illness, I'm talking about just the way of life for everybody. Is how are you finding that you are coming across people or helping people to deal with that? Because 2020 was a huge thing for everybody in the world. And like I said, that was a nearly everybody had the grief at the same time. And of course we all had that, yes, but we're all in this together. And you know, we can understand it because we've all been through that process. But how can people who might not realize that that was actually a grief that a loss that they had, how can people start to deal with it if they haven't already? So for our listeners who are most probably not realizing that there was this massive impact on a grief. And of course, if you didn't know somebody who died from COVID, or who, you know, passed away, but you had furlough. Here in England we had furlough. You know, you had a great time because you were at home, or you were dealing with homeschooling, or, you know, not everybody had the traumatic part of it, you know, losing a business. Some people, it was great, they got, you know, 3 months paid holiday, you know, cool. But it's still a grieving process, because you had your loss of freedom that you might not have acknowledged. So would you have any sort of advice or just something about that process that the world went through for people who might not realize that they actually went through a grieving process without necessarily realizing it?
Natalie, that is a beautiful question to ask. I love that. My biggest thing I could share with people that don't necessarily recognize they went through grief in 2020, the biggest thing I can share with you guys is a quick exercise. Take out a piece of paper and block off an hour time at your night, just an hour with a piece of paper and a pen. And I want you to write down all the ways your life has changed since 2020. I know that sounds really simple and basic, but I promise you, take the time, take an hour to sit down and say, what has my life evolved from 2020 to now? And write down all those things. Did you lose somebody? Did you, when you went through COVID, how did you feel? Did you lose a job? Did you have to move? Did you lose a business? Did you lose a friendship? Did you feel stuck inside constantly? Were you going stir crazy? Write down all those feelings, all those emotions, all those experiences. Write those things down. Let that stuff come out of your brain. The reason I say this is that people that don't necessarily feel like they've experienced grief or gone through grief just simply have not given themselves space to do so. And the biggest example I can share, because this is still going on in the United States right now, is we have what I like to call urgency culture, where everybody is going like this in their head really, really fast. It's, oh, gotta get the kids to school. Oh, I gotta get to work. Oh, I'm 15 minutes late. Oh, I gotta go to the grocery store right now. Oh, I gotta bump this person in the store. Their brain is in reaction mode really fast. I see it every day when I go out. And the problem with not being able to recognize your grief is when you live in reaction, you're not slowing down enough to actually give yourself space to see things. And so I would encourage people to move from a state of reaction to a state of responding in life. Responding and reaction are very different. Reaction is where it's just a knee-jerk thought. Whatever flies out of here, first thought's how you're going to handle your day. When you respond to something, you give yourself space and you say, oh, this just happened. How do I feel about that? How do I want to respond to that? Do I like this? Do I not like this? Does this make me feel this way or does it make me feel that way? When you get yourself into a state of responding to life, 90% of your problems you think are problems don't become problems anymore. You're actually free from that. You broke the chain. Because society is set up in a way to make you very reactive. When we went through COVID, by the way, well, not a lot of people saw, the masses that I saw all the time was that your life is changing, your world's changing. You're clinging on to the past thing that you're used to because you're getting launched into something that's completely uncertain. And like Natalie said, one day you have freedom, the next day you don't. One day you might have toilet paper in the store, the next day you don't. When you get tossed into an environment like that, that's very, very reactive and very, very volatile, but you're used to everyday routine, it will shake your world up. And the thing that was very problematic for a lot of people was that reaction piece. I saw a lot of people say, oh, I'm going to lose my business. Oh, I'm going to lose my job. Oh, my family's having this thing on. Oh, they're just jumping ping pong into things and not slowing down to process and understand their needs in that moment. Not understand that maybe that job, you just don't like it anymore. And that's okay, because guess what? The job market just opened up. So forget that job, go over here and go after that thing that you want. That can be a responding effort versus saying, oh my God, I lost my job. I'm screwed. When you're in that reaction land, by the way, you make decisions that aren't even yours. They're not even in your best interest when you're reacting to things. When you respond to things, what you're doing is saying, these are my needs. I need this. I want to feel this. I wish my life could be that. When you get in that responding place, again, you're stepping into your control, you're stepping into your power, you're making decisions for you. And so I would encourage listeners to take some time. I usually recommend a half hour at minimum if you've got a lot of stuff going on, a half an hour where you're not on your phone, you're not on the TV, you're not doing any of these things, but you're sitting down with paper and pen and this bad boy up here that's 2 million years old because it's going to tell you where you need to go. And give yourself space to write down things. This is how I feel. This is what I'm lacking. This is where I don't feel seen and heard and understood. This is where I'm reacting in life. This is where I'm responding. Write that stuff down and give yourself that space, because I'll tell you right now as a coach, a lot of people say, do you tell clients what to do? Do you give them answers? And I go, no, that's the furthest thing from what I do. I said, I help people pull that information out because they have the answers inside of them. It's not my job to tell other people what to do. I help them pull the information out and I help them figure out what their solutions are. Help them figure out what's inside them to get to that place they want to go. And so I'm a firm believer that everybody has the answers they need inside them. Sometimes we just need someone to come along and help us unlock it and get it out. So I hope that helped answer that question, Natalie.
Yes, and I mean that is great advice, is just sit down and write and just start to really acknowledge your own emotions and how you're feeling, which is a whole different conversation and a whole different episode, because that's quite a big thing to really start to feel your emotions. But as you said, is maybe write down, you know, what it was like before and what it was like after and during, so that you get an idea of what you went through. and to really acknowledge that grief within you. And now how can I move forward? And I know it's 5 years later, but we're still living with it. We still feel with it. I know a lot of times it's pre-COVID or after COVID, these conversations, it's, you know, I know we had BC for before Christ. I'm sure we're going to have BC before COVID. You know, what was life like before? What's life like now? And it's very much become part of conversations or culture is, yes, but before COVID, this and this, but now it's like this. So writing down and really starting to look and see, I think that's a great step in starting a healing process, because so many people, and even myself included, is we do need to heal from it, because it was such a huge thing. And it's not something that, you know, your neighbor experienced and you don't understand. The whole world experienced it at the same time. So it's you're not alone. As you said, you're not alone. So thank you for sharing that. That is really great advice, and something that can help in so many ways. So grab a pen and paper, give yourself that time, minimum 30 minutes, as Chris said, 1 hour, and just sit there and write how you're feeling, what it was like, or what you can remember, what it was like before, what's it like afterwards, during, or whatever, and start to acknowledge yourself and your feelings. So thank you so much for that, Chris. That was really a powerful advice, tool, tip, whatever you want to call it, but thank you.
Hop on to our Patreon account to get this episode's amazing and wonderful gold nugget.
So for our listeners who, you know, listening to this, they either are in the process of grief, or they think they have, well, they want to learn more about their grief, or they know somebody who's grieving, or they want to understand more about it, whatever they're wanting, how or where can people find you to connect with you?
The best place for people to find me right now is I am on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok right now. I've been growing my following on there, so you guys can join me on my social media. I enjoy people that engage and ask questions like Lenka and Natalie did today. I love it when you guys ask questions, because this grief journey, we can all learn so much from each other. So come follow me on my socials. I do have a website right now that is www.empoweredgriefjourney.com. You guys can learn a little bit more about my story and see what I offer for coaching. I do offer free empowerment calls where you guys can jump on a call with me. It's not a sales call. This is just strictly a sacred space pause, as I like to call it, for you guys to just talk to somebody without any kind of judgment, any kind of notions of things, but to really take time, as we talked about with journaling and writing down today, just a space for you to come and say, this is where I'm at in my grief journey. This is where I may or may need help. And I want to make sure that I'm able to offer that to people, because sometimes we get bogged down with a lot of people around us that aren't so supportive of our journey. So I want to offer that. If you need a free 1 hour space where you can process your grief and emotions, I do offer that. So come check me out on my website and come follow me on social media. We have fun conversations about grief, and we find ways to be empowered through it.
Thank you for that. And we will have all your links. We'll put all your links in the descriptions below, so that so listeners can click on the links and get access to you. And you are a useful person to know, because as I said earlier, we all have grief in one form or other throughout our life. And it happens more times than we would necessarily like. So it is good to find places and to start to be open to talking about it and to acknowledging it within ourselves, but also for those around us who are maybe going through a process, and we can then just be there for them. So thank you so much. And as I said, all your links will be in the description below. And yes, so thank you so much for sharing your time with us today, for sharing your energy, your stories, and your experiences of how you've got where you are today. And you're not going to be the same person this time next year, but this is who you are right now. So thank you so much for sharing your time and energy with us. It's been a good conversation, and it's a wonderful topic to actually be talking about, because it's something that we do need to talk about more. So thank you so much for being with us today.
Well, Natalie and Lenka, I want to thank you both for having me on your podcast. It was truly an honor to meet both of you guys today. And as Natalie said, I just thank you so much for holding space to talk about grief, because there are so many people, including your listeners, who are going to hear this episode and feel a release in themselves to just say, I'm okay with where I'm at today, and it's okay to be there. And it's a beautiful thing that you guys are doing. So I'm very grateful to have gotten to connect with you guys today. And I hope our message together today changes the world on how we see grief.
So for our listeners, what have you got from this conversation today? I know it's a deep conversation. It's one of those conversations that could feel even like, eek, and oh, I don't know, and make us uncomfortable. But it's an important conversation, because we do all go through a grieving process at some point and many times in our lives. So we would love to know, what have you got from this conversation? What aha moments have you received, or have you really started to see grief in a different way, or acknowledging grief in your life? We would love to know your thoughts, or what you've got from today, or just how have you dealt with grief in your life, and what have you done that's helped you to move on and to find your new path in life. And until next time, we'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Here is your reminder about our Patreon, where you get all our really beautiful gold nuggets. And today we had a fantastic gold nugget to share. Subscribe to Patreon. The link is in the description below. Hop into the gold nugget section to access all our wonderful gold nuggets. There is also a free section where you can access snippets from past episodes, as well as some great content with tips, advice, and beautiful and wonderful wisdom. Come and join up and be part of the Into Your Life community. We would love to see you there.